Um, you know that feeling when you're just sitting in a perfectly quiet house?
Yes, where the immediate environment appears completely normal.
Right, like you're just reading a book or maybe having a coffee. But you can feel this incredibly subtle vibration coming from, somewhere deep under the floorboards.
We observe that as a state of unseen structural pressure.
Yeah, exactly. Because you look around the room and nothing is visibly broken. I mean, the lights are on, the Wi-Fi is working fine.
The surface continuity remains totally intact.
Right, the walls aren't cracking or anything. But you just know something fundamental is quietly shifting beneath your feet.
The world is not collapsing,
Hmm.
but we are tracking a profound phase shift.
Well, welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're really trying to put a finger on what that exact vibration is.
It is crucial to identify where the friction is actually pooling.
Yeah, and to do that, we are looking at this fascinating analytical framework. It's called Mini Fields-Based LMOS V1.1.
Specifically, we are examining an application of it called the W16 report.
Right, the W16 report, which covers the window of April 13th through the 19th, 2026. And the entire mission of this deep dive today is to really change how you watch the news.
We have to move past judging events as right or wrong.
Exactly. We want to stop looking at global events as like a moral narrative and start looking at them as a complex system of structures and pressures.
That is the core rule of the LMOS framework: structure over impression.
Structure over impression. I like that. So let's break down exactly how this framework actually does that.
The report divides every observation into a mini observation field with 3 specific layers.
Okay, right. So we have the N layer, which is the narrative,
Yes, the narrative layer represents the surface story.
like the official announcements or the political slogans. And then beneath that, we have the I layer, the internal or value layer.
That layer contains the underlying collective fears and historical traumas.
Okay, let me see if I'm visualizing this right. Is it essentially like looking at a car?
A car is a highly functional analogy for this.
Okay, so the N layer, the narrative, that would be the flashy paint job, right? It's what the dealership uses to sell it.
Correct. It is the outward-facing impression.
Right. And then the I layer, the internal stuff, that might be the driver's underlying anxieties or, their actual reasons for buying that specific car.
It drives the internal logic of the movement.
But, and this is the key part, neither the paint job nor the driver's anxiety actually moves the vehicle down the highway.
No, that requires the final layer, the OS layer.
The operational system.
Yes, the literal mechanics doing the heavy lifting.
Right, so the engine block, the transmission. In the real world, we're talking about like financial markets, supply chains, power grids.
Military logistics and algorithmic trading as well.
Okay, so how do these layers actually interact to create that vibration we were talking about earlier?
The friction arises because these layers operate at entirely different speeds.
Different speeds, okay?
Yes, we track a metric called speed and shear.
Speed and shear. So like when the operational engine is revving incredibly fast, but the physical reality of the transmission just can't keep up.
Exactly. When the gears cannot synchronize, you generate shear.
Wait, I want to push back slightly on this idea of speed causing friction, though, because, engines are literally built to go fast.
Speed itself is not the structural problem. Mismatched speed is the problem.
Oh, mismatched speed. Right.
Yeah.
So if one gear is spinning at 10,000 RPMs, but the gear it connects to can only physically handle 1,000.
The system does not smoothly decelerate. It generates structural heat.
It grinds.
Yes. This is why the framework treats extreme public emotion as a gradient rather than a narrative truth.
Wait, emotion as a gradient? What does that mean?
Strong biases in the news are acting as heat sensors.
Oh, wow. So when, like, a pundit is screaming on television or a specific demographic is showing this extreme fear in a poll, we shouldn't just write them off as being dramatic.
We observe their extreme emotion as radiating heat. It shows us exactly where the pressure between layers is building.
So we don't have to agree with their specific story, we just have to recognize that the heat is real.
Exactly. You simply observe the gradient.
Okay, let's pull this out of the abstract and apply it to something we're all seeing every single day right now.
The current boom in artificial intelligence is a prime observation point.
Yeah, the AI boom. The W16 report takes a hard look at AI investment, and it highlights this massive, hidden structural mismatch.
We observe the AI space strictly through the operational system layer.
Right, so looking at the financial investment, the absolute massive demand for GPUs, the capital flowing into these massive data centers.
The financial OS layer is operating at an incredibly high velocity.
I completely get that the money is flowing fast,
Yeah.
but I'm kind of struggling to see how this is fundamentally different from normal supply and demand.
The discrepancy lies in the physical constraints and the scale of the gap.
But hasn't infrastructure always lagged behind investment? I mean, think about the dot-com boom in the late 90s.
The current state presents a significantly different magnitude of physical resistance.
Because we threw billions at the internet before we even had the fiber optic cables laid out back then.
Laying fiber optic cable was a challenge, but AI requires unprecedented physical resources.
Yeah, it's not just cables, it's electricity, cooling water, rare earth minerals.
The framework calls this the time phase gap.
Time phase gap, meaning the time it takes for the physical world to catch up to the digital money.
Yes, approving the financial capital for $1 billion data center takes milliseconds.
Right.
But upgrading the power grid to run that center takes years of environmental reviews and copper mining.
Ah, I see. So the money is moving at the speed of light, but you still need, like, a guy named Bob with a hard hat to actually go out and pour the concrete.
And to wire the transformers. We track this as an OS compatibility error.
An OS compatibility error. That's a great term for it.
The high-speed investment logic is structurally sound, but it is currently stuck in physical reality.
So the issue identified in the report isn't a debate over whether AI is good or bad or if it's going to change the world.
No, it is simply a severe distortion in the recovery time of these investments.
Because this incredibly fast operational system of capital is just dragging against the slow reality of copper and concrete.
It creates immense invisible shear across the global system.
The financial layer is essentially just peeling away from the physical layer.
And this structural mismatch bleeds directly into the logistics membranes.
Right, the actual physical supply chains that move our stuff around the world.
This is where we observe a highly concerning shift in global connectivity.
Let's get into that because the framework reveals a pretty terrifying shift here.
When examining logistics, we see supply chains transitioning from a state of linear delay to a state of probability.
Okay, before we go deeper into that, what does a state of probability actually mean for a physical supply chain?
We classify this as moving from phase S2 to phase S3.
Right, phase S2. What does S2 look like on the ground?
Phase S2 represents bearing friction. The system experiences linear delay.
So, like being stuck in a traffic jam. Things are moving slowly, there's congestion.
Yes, your shipment might be a week late, but you still know the exact route it is taking.
Okay, so what is phase S3 then?
Phase S3 is structural wear and tear. The system is fundamentally fracturing.
Wait, fracturing, like breaking apart.
It is a non-linear jump. It is no longer a question of when an item will arrive, but if it will arrive at all.
Oh, wow. Are you saying the global supply chain is starting to just give up on optimization entirely?
The physical reality on the ground has fundamentally branched due to routing uncertainties.
That is more than a little unsettling. It's not like a train running 20 minutes late. It's like we don't even know if the tracks connect the two cities anymore.
Exactly. The system is still trying to run on old software rules of perfect optimization.
But the physical tracks are broken. Ships are rerouting entirely around continents, right?
Specific ports are bottlenecking unpredictably, and certain components simply cannot be sourced.
And we are still trying to manage all this chaos with tools designed for a stable, totally predictable world.
The network is becoming inherently unstable.
Okay, but if the friction is really this severe, and the supply chains are literally entering this phase of unpredictable wear and tear,
Yeah.
I have to ask the obvious question here.
Go ahead.
Why am I not paying $10 a gallon at the gas pump right now?
This brings us to a crucial concept in the framework called silence detection.
Right, because if things are shifting this drastically, why hasn't the stock market cratered? Why haven't things exploded?
We assume that if a structure is failing, it will be loud. We expect alarms.
Yeah, exactly. The news would be screaming about it.
Under the LMOS framework, silence absolutely does not mean stability.
It doesn't. Then what does it mean?
Silence often indicates unvented heat.
Unvented heat, like a pressure cooker with a plugged valve.
Precisely. The W16 report looks at the energy and financial membranes to illustrate this.
Yeah, it specifically points to the Middle East, right? The Strait of Hormuz. It describes the situation there as critical but quiet.
We observe massive geopolitical tensions in that corridor, yet the actual prices for oil and natural gas remain remarkably stable.
Which makes no sense. How does the financial membrane suppress energy prices when the physical risk to the oil tankers is objectively rising?
The financial membrane is acting as a massive shock absorber.
So it's just taking the brunt of the geopolitical uncertainty.
It suppresses the immediate price reactions, effectively buying the global economy time.
But how? Are the market traders and the algorithms just ignoring the physical risk entirely?
They see the physical data, but they are pricing in probabilistic interventions.
Interventions, like assuming the global powers will step in to prevent a total shutdown?
Yes. They assume alternative supply routes will magically compensate, so the financial layer chooses to ignore the physical shear.
But just ignoring the friction doesn't make the friction magically go away.
No, it does not.
I mean, if my car engine is overheating and I just put a piece of black tape over the temperature gauge, the engine is still going to melt eventually.
That is the exact danger of silence detection. The structural gap is not being resolved.
So the heat is not being vented at all?
It results in a quiet, massive accumulation of structural pressure.
So the system isn't technically broken, right? Like oil is still flowing, trades are still happening.
The structure itself is not broken, but its behavior under pressure has completely transformed.
The most dangerous distortion in any operating system is the one that goes entirely unobserved.
Correct. And that unvented heat must eventually go somewhere.
Right, the pressure doesn't just vanish into thin air. Which leads us to the most concerning part of this whole report.
The pressure slowly pools toward the slowest moving layer of the global system.
And the framework calls this the life membrane, right?
Yes, the life membrane represents local, everyday reality.
Our neighborhoods, our grocery stores, our utility bills.
Local reality is just now on the absolute verge of making contact with this accumulated, silent tension.
So we are starting to see the early localized signals of this contact.
We are. The report highlights the Niseko real estate market in Japan as a key observation point.
Okay, hold on, I have to stop you there. Niseko, the luxury ski resort town in Japan.
Yes, it is a highly relevant local fracture.
Why on earth is a global framework analyzing AI constraints and Middle Eastern oil routes suddenly looking at a Japanese ski resort?
Because Niseko perfectly illustrates fast international capital violently colliding with slow local reality.
Oh, I see. So Niseko has seen this massive influx of foreign investment money.
That represents the fast OS layer.
But the actual physical construction of these new resorts is totally bottlenecked.
It is constrained by severe local labor shortages and permitting issues. That is the slow physical layer.
Right, so the fast money just hits a physical brick wall.
Exactly. The local state shifts from rapid growth to sudden operational stagnation.
Projects just freeze entirely.
Niseko is a leading indicator. It is a localized example of the time phase gap playing out in physical space.
It's the life membrane finally feeling the heat.
The report notes that upstream inflation pressures like mining and raw materials are reaccelerating.
But the downstream consumer reaction remains completely sluggish, right? It's delayed.
The consumer has not fully realized the phase shift yet.
The heat is just silently pooling right at the edge of our everyday life.
We are transitioning into a reality that only functions probabilistically.
I really want to make sure everyone listening internalizes this, because this is where the theory actually hits your driveway.
The local implications are vital to observe.
What does a probabilistic reality mean for you? It means you shouldn't be looking out the window waiting for a Hollywood movie crash.
A sudden, total global crash is a narrative. We must observe branching instead.
Right. The sky isn't going to fall all at once. The breakdown is going to look like branching.
A series of localized fractures and highly selective supply issues.
So you will go to the hardware store, and 95% of the inventory will be perfectly stocked.
But the one specific valve you require will be unavailable.
Right, it'll just be quietly back-ordered for 6 months.
Or a local construction project will extend its timeline indefinitely due to missing electrical wire.
Because they simply cannot source it. Local services won't entirely collapse. They will just quietly degrade.
We must simply observe these local tensions and phase shifts without projecting a narrative.
Yeah, the instinct is always to choose one ultimate doomsday narrative, or like one utopian tech solution narrative.
The LMOS framework demands that we reject both extremes.
We just have to observe the states of friction. The structures themselves are keeping their shape, mostly.
But their capacity to guarantee connection and certainty has fundamentally eroded.
Well, we've really used this W16 report today to look right past the noisy, exhausting news cycle.
Observing the structural gradients provides much greater clarity.
We've seen this massive, silent heat trapped in the gap between high-speed financial systems and the slow, stubborn reality of the physical world.
The system is not collapsing tomorrow, but it is undeniably shifting.
Shifting from a state of perfect certainty to a state of really uneasy probability.
The vibration under the floorboards is real, is the sound of the world's gears slipping.
Which leaves us with a final thought for you to carry into your week.
Keep observing the local states.
When that unvented silent heat finally hits the slow-moving life membrane of our everyday economy, what will be the very first local price spike or the first missing item on your grocery shelf that makes you realize the phase has permanently shifted?
You keep watching those gradients
Yeah.
and pay very close attention to the silence.